Welcome to 13 Minutes of Gig News in 13 minutes or less. All right, guys, just a few stories for you today. First off, Lyft's new feature. I won't even get into Uber Teen today because we talked about it last week, although I do want to mention it's everywhere now. Drivers, real quickly, this wasn't even a topic of mine, but I have to say it. I'm just reminding you, please, please, please do any research you can on it. And until you do, just go into the settings and deselect Uber Teen if you're doing rideshare so that you do not get any teen rides. Until you do your own research, don't take them. You don't even have to rely on me or anything. Just go do your own research before you drive any teenagers who are unaccompanied minors, please. But let's move into Lyft here real quick. So Lyft has Women Plus. So it's women and non-binary drivers can opt into this program. If you drive for Lyft and you're a woman or a non-binary and you select that you want to be in the program, then you will be matched up with women and non-binaries who are also looking for those type of rides. I've heard a couple people say that it doesn't make sense because it's only on the driver's side, so the driver can select that they want to be in it, but then there's no way of the passenger. That is not correct, you guys. That is completely false. Actually, the passengers are also being prompted through the app and via email if they would like to be in the program, just to simply select it. That means that if you are a passenger and you select it, you will be matched up with a woman or a non-binary for your rides. That makes you feel safer. Now, on the driver end, I got to say, you can select it, but it doesn't mean all of your rides will be that. You still will get offers from men and other things too. You're going to get all the offers. You're just going to get, if you're a woman or non-binary driver, you will get first pick and option to take those rides. So it's a big feature. These are the kind of things I always wonder, why hasn't this been here forever? It's like, Lyft is doing a couple things here to shake it up, but I've been saying forever, why isn't Little Sister shaking it up? I mean, when we go back in time a little bit, I think I've told you guys enough times that most of my rides were on Lyft. I mean, and I did tons, but even on the Uber platform, I did tons. But it wasn't until 2016 or early 2017, it was early 2017, when Lyft stopped paving their own way and just said, hey, let's do everything Uber does. And that's kind of when I was like, well, wait a minute, it was actually, sorry, it's so many years ago. It's probably early 2018. Yeah, because it was a good stone's throw before they went public. But they were doing their own thing. They treated the drivers differently. They paid the drivers differently. It was still rideshare, but from a driver perspective, I preferred Lyft. Up until that early 2018, I preferred Lyft because they were changing the programs. There was more money to be made. They still were the smaller company, but for whatever reason, they were paving their own way. And I'm not talking about the pink mustache days. I did start in 2015, which was the end of that era. So when they first came here, those did exist still. But this isn't the mustache rides. I'm talking about just everything they did. And then they said, let's follow Uber. And I always wondered, I get it when you want to follow the bigger company, but who's to say you wouldn't have been the bigger company had you gone your own route? I mean, Uber wasn't a successful company at the time, so to follow them blindly made no sense. I mean, it wasn't proven which one was better overall because neither company was making a profit. And Lyft had a lot less money to work with than Uber did. Uber has endless pockets. Lyft didn't. I mean, they kind of had endless pockets, but not like Uber. And so to follow them blindly, I mean, you had Uber been making tons of money and Lyft wasn't, that would make sense. But this didn't make sense. These are the kind of moves, though, where Rideshare, the new CEO, he's been very successful. And a lot of it is through investing, too. If you guys aren't familiar, he was invested in the early days of Microsoft. Like I'm talking about when it was under $1 a share. He was involved in the early days of Amazon, like when it was under $1 a share. So this guy is like mega rich, and he's the new CEO of Lyft, and they're, for whatever reason, they're thinking, he's been very good at predicting things and all this, that, and the other. So like the news that he put $1 million into the company, don't let that throw you either, because that $1 million to him, and I think I said this on the roundtable, is the equivalent of like $100 to me. So, I mean, it's still money, and he's still showing some faith, but I mean, come on. But this is launched in Phoenix, some other cities, and I know they're going to be nationwide here soon. It's another perk that probably Uber will copy, but for the time being, it's Lyft's. If Lyft were to do a few more things like this, maybe something would happen. But we all know that Lyft has under $1 billion of operating money, so it's there, and that might still sound like a lot to a lot of you, but they were, 25 billion. So I mean, to say they're under $1 billion, they're kind of on their last legs here. If they don't do something huge, I don't see how Lyft is around in a year and a half, 2 years. And Uber will always be around. Uber could lose money for 50 years. They will still be around. This company will not shut down. It's a way, well, you guys can decipher for yourself, but it's a way for investors to even get in, get out, all kinds of things that will always keep Uber alive. It'll be global, and it will always be around. So just my opinion, but you guys can do your own math on that. I also want to talk about 2 DoorDash incidents that happened. The first one is the spitting on a delivery. So, okay, we've seen everything. We've seen people drop the pizza and the Ring doorbells catch it, and it says, hey, you only tip me $5 because the guy looks at the mansion and says, this is a multi-million-dollar home. You should tip me more. We've seen people encounter other people and say, hey, where's my tip? And you know what? This has never existed. When I worked in the bar and restaurant industry for 20 years plus, most people are good people. They tipped, but some people didn't. You never would do that face to face. So people are overpaying for this food to be delivered in the first place. These platforms rip off the customer side in a huge way. So to be honest, do the best you can deciphering which orders you take, but once you take it, it's yours. Don't complain. This is one of the most ridiculous stories that there is. But again, it's one that some people, have they not done their math, might say, well, did it really happen? It really did. He spit on their food, and there was a tip on there, but it wasn't enough of a tip. So I guess my question is, was this driver hoping that there was going to be a hidden tip? Was this driver hoping that the person was going to add to the tip? Because here's my thing. You look at, even if it's a hidden tip, whatever the scenario might be, once you take it, it's yours. Your job is to do your job. If the tip doesn't end up being what you want it to be, well, then just hope for the next one to be better. But if that's your kind of attitude, that's why we talked about on Roundtable, on the roundtable this week, how many people have been in the service industry? This is not service industry. If you did that in the service industry, in the traditional service industry, you'd be fired immediately. And good luck. I mean, people would kind of, that just doesn't fly in that zone. The other thing about DoorDash that I want to talk about real quick here is the DoorDash driver in Washington, D.C. Okay, the guy I've read this story many times I basically read all the articles on it because it's very weird. It's strange. So the guy has a Nissan. He's delivering DoorDash. He's on U Street. For anybody familiar with Washington, D.C., he's on U Street, and he stops to make a delivery. There's no parking, so he's kind of saddle parked next to some cars parked along the curb. And he gets out, leaves the door open and the car running, walks up to put the delivery down, puts it down. And as he's walking back to the car, he notices that 2 people are in the car and it's driving away. So what does he do? He jumps in front of a car coming at him, waves it down, opens the door, doesn't talk to the person and ask first. He opens the door, gets in the car and says, follow that car. That guy just stole my car. Problem here is he just committed a felony too. He just committed grand theft auto because he's not a police officer, and you can't just get into a car and tell somebody what to do. I get that his energy took over and he wanted that, but this is not the way to go about it. And a lot of people, like every time I read the same story, it's like everybody's missing that part of the story. I mean, he could be charged as a criminal himself for getting in that car and telling that person what to do. Most likely won't happen, especially after what happened to him, which is, here's where we come to it. The guy, for whatever reason, the person driving the car that he got into and said, follow that car, did follow that car. And when they got to the next, or 2 lights up or something, it was a little ways, it was about a half mile or something, from what I can tell from the stories. But they got to a light, the other car stopped, his car. He gets out of the passenger side of the car that he told to follow the car, goes up to his own car, opens up the passenger door, rips out the passenger, throws him on the curb, and then from the passenger side pulls the driver out through the passenger door and is throwing him out of the car. And while he's doing that, he gets shot in the left leg by the first guy he threw out, the guy that was in the passenger seat. Now, both the guys that had taken the car go off running, and this guy's now shot in the left leg. There's a car behind him that he had hijacked, and he now gets into his car and starts driving. And as all the articles say, he was looking for a police officer or an ambulance or something. Again, just there was a gunshot. Just stay where you are. You're shot in the leg. It's a crime scene. There's so many unknowns about this, but this story just baffles me. But again, if somebody tries to carjack you, first of all, it shouldn't be happening. Be very careful. Don't leave your car running. Don't leave the door open. Please just be smart. But if a carjacking were to occur, let the car go, guys. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's your life. That could have been his life, not just his leg. That said, Parapass. I know a lot of people are having issues with uploading some documents. If you are, I have now talked to the team. Email info@withpara.com, info@withpara.com, and they will help you from there. If you don't get a response or anything, you can email steve@withpara.com, and I will get with them. But there's a lot coming up on that, so catch next week's Para as well. And you guys, that's 13 minutes of news in just under 13 minutes. Peace.